The cello, the cello. It's one of those instruments that hits you right here, unlike so many other instruments. And you might be one of those people that's thinking, I have to learn how to play that. I have to learn how to play the cello. But you may also be thinking, at my age, is that something that I can do? Is it possible to learn the cello as an adult? Well, if you're thinking about learning the cello as an adult, I have 8 really important things that you need to consider before you make that leap. I'm Carolyn with Cello Discovery, and let's see if you have what it takes to start and to stick with it. Number 1, is the cello an instrument that you are really, truly passionate about? Is it something you've been thinking about all the time and you watch all sorts of YouTube videos, you see people playing, you imagine learning, you've seen other adults play? When you take on a new, challenging hobby, it's really important, as an adult especially, to have a really strong desire to learn that hobby if your ultimate goal is really to succeed at it. You have to envision your future self succeeding in that hobby. Number 2, it's really important to be realistic about what it's going to take to learn the cello. Learning the cello is not a quick endeavor, not at all. It takes time and it takes a lot of work. And part of the recipe for successful learning is consistency. You need to set some weekly goals, you need to work diligently towards those goals, and efficiently use your time, your practice time, and you need to plan to accomplish some new skill every week. Learning to play the cello shouldn't be an added stress in your life. It should be something that you really enjoy. And that's not to say that there's not going to be moments when you're discouraged and you're unmotivated and upset and tired, but the enjoyment component should really be there. It should always be present in what you do. People who excel at what they do, they just make it look easy. And with that said, it's good to maintain a realistic outlook on the hill that you're going to have to climb to become proficient on the cello. Number 3, do you actually have the time to learn the cello? And I ask this because there's a lot of folks out there that are raising little kids, or perhaps they have parents that they have to look after. Or maybe you work full-time, or you've got other responsibilities in your life, and carving out time is a really essential element for achieving success. And on the element of time, it's really important that you plan several hours a week, really at minimum, to do effective practice time. I know I keep mentioning that, but you have to practice this instrument to get better at it. And you can break down those hours into little mini practice sessions. If you don't have the ability to practice in big chunks, you can do little small focused time without distractions. And number 4, have you thought about the financial implications of learning the cello? And it doesn't have to be a financial burden, but there's several things that you need to know about the costs to learn the cello. And there's things you can do to go about this in a conservative way. So to begin with, there's no need to go purchase a brand new cello or a new bow or all that stuff. In fact, it's much better to wait for a while until you have a good understanding of what you're doing and you know what to look for in a new cello. Most string shops carry quality instruments that you can rent, and most of these companies have a rent-to-own policy, so a large portion of what you're putting down every month goes towards the purchase. So it's not terrible, but it's a bit of an upfront cost that you have to have an instrument to get started. And a lot of people take one-on-one lessons when they're first starting to learn the cello. It's very important for a lot of people to have that one-on-one interaction, but keep in mind, this is going to be the most expensive part of your journey. So you're going to need to have probably a 45-minute to a 60-minute lesson as an adult. Every week or every other week is typical, and lessons can cost, depending on where you live, anywhere from $50 or $60 to $100 and even $150 an hour for some teachers. So typically the more you spend usually translates into the experience of the teacher. So just be careful if you go that route and you are paying that much money for lessons. You want to make sure that you have a really reputable teacher. But you can also do Zoom lessons, except Zoom lessons are also usually just as expensive as in-person lessons. So if you can do in-person lessons, that's the best way to go. You can also go with some free resources. A lot of people go to YouTube to try to find some resources. The only problem with YouTube as your teacher is that you're not really getting sequential information. You're getting haphazard, random information that's not necessarily helpful to setting you up in the most efficient way from the very start. So breaking down those costs a little bit, if you rent a cello, usually you can get an instrument for somewhere around $50 a month to rent. So for 3 months, you're looking at $150, and then you need a number of accessories, and that can cost anywhere from $40 to $100 depending on what brands you select for some of your accessories. And then if you're taking private lessons for say 3 months, it could cost you as much as $700 or more. So that's a big piece of the expense. And that brings me to number 5, which kind of ties into number 4, and that is quality, affordable cello instruction accessible to you? And you may live in a city without a real qualified cello instructor. And if you're trying to figure out, well, what's a quality teacher? How do I know? Well, the best teachers, they're trained to be experts in cello pedagogy. And in addition, they have fully honed their craft, and they still perform often. And they're exceptional performers as well as great teachers. They've spent a lifetime teaching and performing professionally. Those seasoned teachers and performers understand all the different nuance of the instrument, and they can aptly convey to that student what they need to do. Number 6 has to do with if you have any physical limitations that might keep you from playing the cello well. There's a lot of people out there who do have some limitations, and they've been able to successfully play the cello. But I wanted to point out a couple of things for you to consider in case this is your situation. The first thing is hands and fingers. Hands and fingers play the most pivotal role in you being able to play the cello. So if you happen to be missing any fingers on your left hand, it's still doable. It's just you're going to have to find a teacher who can make some accommodations for you depending on which finger you're missing. That's going to take a little bit of extra preparation for your teacher to help you through that. And then on the right hand, if there's any fingers that are missing on the right hand, that's not going to be as big of a deal because there's a lot of things that you can do to secure the bow in the hand so that you can hold it and do the proper technique with the bow hand. Now your bones are another thing to think about. Do you have severe arthritis? A lot of folks like to take up the cello later in life, but they have some fairly crippling arthritis in their hands, and it gets to a point where you can't bend your fingers the same way as you used to. If that's the case, it's probably going to be a lot more difficult than you think, and it may be hard to do. Now, if you just have mild arthritis in your hands, you can certainly still bend your fingers and maneuver them the way you need to on the instrument. So mild is okay. Extreme arthritis can be difficult for you. Now, as far as your bones and scoliosis is concerned, if you have untreated scoliosis and you've never had surgery and you've never worn a brace, and you have a maturing spine which no longer allows you to sit or stand upright, you're going to need some accommodations as well, because cellists typically sit fairly tall at the edge of their chair, not curved over. And although there's a little bit of variation on how you can sit in the chair, a really tall posture is going to allow you to maneuver around the instrument with more ease. It's also going to allow you to breathe more deeply, and that's another aspect of playing the cello. But again, you can have some accommodations and make this work. And are you left-handed? This is the big thing. People say, okay, I'm left-handed, so I'm going to have to play the cello this way. Well, no, everybody learns the same way. Left hand on the fingerboard, right hand holds the bow. And I'm sure there's going to be people out there that say, I learned the other way and it's just fine. Well, yes, except for there's a lot of factors that change that. In addition, if you ever want to play in a cello ensemble or an orchestra, you're going to be backwards from everybody else. So everybody learns left hand up here, right hand uses the bow. So it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. Number 7 is your goals. Consider your goals that you want to accomplish when you play the cello. So whatever that is, whatever reason that is, other than just saying, I love the cello, I want to play it, like what do you want to do with it? Having that why is really important to stay with it. It helps you stay grounded in each practice session. I mean, everybody's talking about the why right now, and it's important because this is a very important recipe for success, is understanding why you're doing something. Bearing all the outliers in the world, most people really do need a plan. We need some goals. I mean, just think about your basic plan in everyday life. If you want to go on a trip, you're planning what you have to pack. You're planning how you're going to get there. Are you going to drive? Are you going to fly? What are you going to take with you? So all those things are planning, and learning to play the cello is no different. Number 8, and the last thing, is probably one of the most important things, and that is, can you focus? Now, I ask you this because so often we're not able to be truly present in the moment and cannot focus on a specific task. And some of us are forever looking or seeing into the future when the life is actually happening right now. And so being able to focus and be very present on the moment is going to help you learn how to play the cello better. The most successful musicians have found ways to be mindful and extremely focused in their practice and in their performances. And because of this, they're able to turn on all of their senses and analyze what is happening while they're playing. They can hear better, they can see better, they have a heightened tactile sense. So if you haven't really learned how to incorporate this mindful practice into your everyday life, you might be in for a pretty good treat as you learn the cello. Successful musicians have exceptional focus. They learn to focus by doing it, by practicing it. It's usually not an innate skill, so if you don't possess this technique yet, you should at least be willing to try it. That's half the battle. It's a key element for successful learning of the cello. So if you heard all these things and you put a check yes behind all of these questions that I asked you, the 8 things that you need to know, then you're probably ready to start playing the cello. So keep those things in mind as you start your journey. I wish you all success, and if you're looking for something that's very affordable and approachable, you might check out cellodiscovery.com. Again, the link is below, and I wish you all the success on your cello journey.